This was by far the slimmest week since switching to this format, and while that isn't a bad thing, just a heads up that this won't be the most substantial episode. This week was dominated by the news cycle, and this is not a wrestling news channel by any means. If it were, I'd have to spend the majority of this video talking about The Rock, and quite frankly, I don't have it in me to do that. As far as the in-ring goes, not a lot stood out. The TV throughout the week was unremarkable, and some of the shows over the weekend didn't necessarily deliver how I would have hoped. There were still a few matches I enjoyed over the weekend I wanted to discuss. As always, keep in mind that I haven't seen every single match to have taken place, and the ones I do choose to talk about are all based on my personal enjoyment and nothing else. A slight spoiler warning, as I will be talking about match finishes too. After watching 47 matches spanning 5 promotions, here are my favorites from the 5th week of the year. The one match from this week I'd consider absolutely must see. Collision has been quietly consistent, and the February 3rd edition was no exception, given that it included the proper kickoff to the CMLL-BCC feud. It's a case of Bryan Danielson not just checking another luchador off of the list, but one where he understands the mission of showcasing Hechicero to a new audience with great effect. This is done in addition to advancing Danielson's recent character change to this arrogant jerk, having to reassure that the people still love him no matter what lengths he'll go to undermine Eddie Kingston. Danielson makes his entrance early to interrupt a wholesome moment after Kingston and Bryan Keith tore the house down, congratulating the new signing in a way that's designed to get under Eddie's skin. After Hechicero purifies the ring, he has an answer for every hold Bryan goes for. He is an escape artist here, and Danielson does a great job of conveying his bewilderment. Similarly to the Zack Sabre Jr. match, Danielson resorts to striking to sway the momentum, though Hechicero fires back with blows just as effectively. Obviously this match is designed to show off Hechicero's technical acumen and moveset, though other things are done just a bit differently to really make him stand out amongst the AEW roster as well as previous guests from other places, be it throwing punches rather than forearms, or the way he hits his tope a little later are examples of this. The main appeal here is on the mat though. Hechicero busts out holds I've never seen before, and both utilize some beautiful counters and transitions. Danielson's double underhook into the label lock is just one off the top of my head that stood out to me. I appreciate how this leads to the finish, as a rapid sequence of counters results in a flash pin for Danielson. It doesn't take away from such a strong showing from Hechicero, and if anything, left me wanting to see more, which is the whole point of this crossover. I would have loved to see these two riff a bit more with some added time, but I can't complain about what we were given. I think this is a good time to evaluate all of my subscriptions and make the jump to the CMLL Premium YouTube membership and see what all the fuss is about. Prefacing this entry by saying that your mileage may vary on the high speed style. A lot of this was strung together with the rope running exchanges, and I could see why somebody wouldn't be into that sort of thing. This was the consensus match of the night from Stardom Supreme Fight, and while my feedback isn't as glowing as others, I still had a lot of fun with it. Hazuki was once again called upon to revitalize a title reign and put in a hell of an individual performance to do so. She is great in the role of pushing the champion to their limit and forcing them to dig deep. Mei Seira wasn't particularly bad here, I just think a lesser wrestler wouldn't have gotten the same result that Hazuki was able to. After the standard opening high-speed exchanges, Hazuki uses her veteran instinct, launching Mei out of the ring only to repeatedly launch herself to the floor with repeated dives. It's one of the more impressive athletic feats of the match, and I can't imagine the cardio required to pull that off. She goes to ground when back in the ring, and after a submission attempt, Hazuki begins to unleash her signature strikes. In a similar vein to the Kamatani match from last year, the Wild Heart gives no choice to her opponent. Mei has to step up and strike back. The ensuing stretch features a nice mix of agility and bombs, highlighted by a turnbuckle-assisted codebreaker. The one thing that really holds the match back for me has to do with the extended submission sequence towards the end. I don't necessarily mind it in theory, but in practice it feels just out of place. To do this so late into the match, but not just act as the finish, felt a bit odd to me. Mei hanging in there to force the draw would have been fine as a finish, but instead they get back up, and Hazuki hits a brainbuster as time expires. It felt more consistent with the idea of Mei as an underdog champion, enduring everything Hazuki threw at her, rather than the challenger simply missing their window by a few seconds. That and Mei's lack of selling at times keeps this on a lighter recommendation from me, though I think if you're into this style there's plenty to enjoy here. I thought Supreme Fight was a fine show, even if the main events didn't click with me. Unfortunately, that all went out the window later that evening with the news breaking that Rossi Ogawa's contract was terminated. As far as a new promotion or a possible talent exodus, I don't have too much to say on that. I'm not going to pretend to know the whole story or about Joshi politics in general, so it's best to avoid the speculation and just see how this plays out. It's hard to go wrong with Natural Vibes and Z-Brats, and this combination made for another fun Dragongate match to close out the Memorial Gate event on Sunday. This was a rematch from last week's title match, this time swapping Strong Machine J out for Jackie Funky Kamei, who's turning into a channel favorite. Just wanted to point out quickly that how the venue in Wakayama is lit gives things a unique feeling, as the red and blue LEDs on the stage paint the respective corners of the ring, which is a nice touch. This starts with a wild brawl initiated by Z-Brats to the surprise of no one. It's all happening from the get-go with brawling in the crowd, Jackie attempting to unmask the new mystery recruit of Z-Brats who's been donning his ring gear, and KZ is left isolated in the ring after a scary dive attempt gone wrong. They are able to work around this though with all the chaos happening around the arena. Z-Brats are strong while in control of KZ, really laying in with their strikes, and KZ does a good job of selling the damage sustained to his leg. They take their time, making KZ earn the hot tag to Jackie with some stiff elbows of his own. The pace quickens when the rest of Vibes enter the match, and I'm never unimpressed anytime Big Boss hits that double Samoan drop. The final third begins with KZ once again on his own, though Jackie crashes into him with a mistimed dive. From here it explodes into high-paced offense where everyone is able to get their shine. We'd be here all day if I broke it down move for move, but I will say that it plays to everyone's strengths and provides a nice balance of hard-hitting action and speed. Ultimately, Z-Brats are able to isolate KZ again, leading to a final showdown between him and Kai. Kato at one point hits KZ with a foreign object when he hits the ropes, and while that doesn't decide the match, it throws him off rhythm to create an opening for Kai. Kai then hits a meteor impact for the victory, and a third successful defense of their titles. If not another wrinkle in this feud, it's just a really fun main event. Everyone contributes, but I think KZ put in a particularly good shift, especially considering the mishap at the beginning of the match. If you like the fast-paced, multi-man matches, give this one a shot. And if you were skimming through this show, I also like the spirited opener between Ryoya Tanaka and Strong Machine J. This week I don't have much as far as dedicated honorable mentions go, but I do think it's great that El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. won the GHC Heavyweight Championship, even if the match itself left a lot to be desired in my opinion. A lot of his national run was spent elevating unfavorable opponents, so I'm looking forward to see if he could do the same in this main event setting. Other than that, I liked what I saw of the Kofi Gunther match, though it felt very restricted by all of the commercials to the point where it felt like I was watching a match joined in progress. And that's it from me. If you got this far into the video, thank you so much for your time and for hearing what I have to say. Be sure to do all of the obligatory YouTube stuff by liking and subscribing, and find me on Twitter or Blue Sky at Outer Stevan. Let me know if I missed anything worth checking out, and I will talk to you again next week.